Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane takes aim at the banks and suggests them an amendment to the Constitution on the role of the Reserve Bank. Is the Public Protector playing politics? Well, a very good morning to you and a warm welcome. I'm Xoli Mgambi. Now remember, your participation is important to us, so send us your video comments via WhatsApp. That number 082-884-6370, or you can chat to us on Twitter at eNCA. Now to discuss this, I'm joined by SAFTU General Secretary, and that is Zwelinzima Vavi, and Mzwanele Manyi from the Progressive Professionals Forum. The Politbureau is now in session. All right, but first, let's take a listen to Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane when asked if her remedial action won't be perceived as politically loaded when she made that recommendation on the role of the Reserve Bank.
We don't want a situation where the Reserve Bank is only benefiting, or it's only seen to be benefiting the commercial banks, whereas neglecting the needs of the South African citizens. So it has nothing to do with being the issue of taking a certain side or being politically motivated.
I said that is public protector overreach.
Is she playing politics?
That is public protector overreach. That's what I called.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, let me bring you in here. Mr. Vavi, I want to start with you. The Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, says the Public Protector has overreached her mandate here. Do you agree?
There are two issues in my view. One is the statement itself, whether the call she is making is an incorrect call or not. And from that point of view, everybody knows that the trade union movement have for ages been calling for the Reserve Bank mandate to be reviewed, and so that it looks more broadly on issues of economic development than just a narrow focus on inflation targeting policy. That's one end. So I'm going to talk about that. The second point is, was she wrong to make that a remedial action or right? In my view, she should have made a call for a discussion on this matter so that she can introduce a very important and necessary discussion among South Africans about the role and the reserve, the place of the Reserve Bank. And, but to make that a remedial action and to instruct Parliament to amend the Constitution, I think that's inappropriate. I think that taken on review, as she's currently being taken on review, she may lose that battle, and because the issue of the Reserve Bank and its narrow focus on protection of the currency is a political issue. It's a policy choice that this government have made. It's a wrong choice in my view. In the view of SAFTU, that's a wrong choice, but it's an ideological stance that they have taken. They will argue that from their policy perspective, the start and the end point must be in protection of the currency in order to guarantee levels of higher growth in the economy. That's a political choice. To be instructed by a public protector to change that political and ideological stance, in my view, will not win in court. It will be defeated.
It won't stand up in court. Mr. Manyu, do you agree with Mr. Vavi?
No, look, I think the separate issues. First and foremost, the Reserve Bank is an organ of the state, so it is subject to interrogation and so on, and investigation by the Public Protector. That's the first thing. The second point that we must underscore is that there's nothing that is sacrosanct. Even the Constitution of this country, where it needs to be changed, it must be changed. In fact, we even have in Parliament a standing committee to change the Constitution when the need arises. So that's a starting point. So therefore, if we have a Public Protector doing her job is to make sure that there's maladministration. There is no dispute that there's an illegality on the lifeboat, and there is no dispute that the Reserve Bank did not play its role in terms of protecting In fact, it did not play its role in terms of even the Reserve Bank Act. There is no dispute that even the Minister of Finance did not do what he should have done in terms of the Section 37 of the Reserve Banks Act. Therefore, the public protector is sitting here and saying what needs to be done in order not to have the repeat of the same. So the first thing that she does is to say, well, this collaboration between the Reserve Bank and the Minister of Finance must actually be a collaboration between the Reserve Bank and Parliament, where Reserve Bank must account, first point. The second point, she then says, if the Reserve Bank's articulation of its mandate in the Constitution makes it not to take care of the people, you must remember, one of the fundamental principles of our Constitution is the well-being of our people. Now, if you are going to have an organ of state which is going to act in a manner that prejudices the interests of the South Africans, the public protector has a duty and the responsibility to set that right. So for me, I think the public protector is very well within her rights. I support her recommendations.
Mr. Vavi is shaking his head, but before we bring you in, Mr. Vavi, let's question this further. So, if Mkhwebane's recommendations won't stand up to legal scrutiny, question remains, what influenced her to take the stance that she's taken on the Reserve Bank? Now, on Wednesday, news website News24 reported that her views on the bank may have come as a result of her interview with Stephen Goodson, a former South African anti-Reserve Bank activist. Now, Mkhwebane interviewed Goodson about the Absa Bancorp investigation on the 23rd of April. 2 days later, she posted on social media that Goodson's book is, quote-unquote, a must-read. Now, the title of the book is called A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind. Let's take a listen to this.
The connection is very clear from that point of view. And, in fact, requires no additional points. The public protector here promotes a book as a must-read book. Who published the book? It is Stephen Goodson. Did Stephen Goodson participate in this process of investigation? Yes, of course.
Mr. Vavi, who is Stephen Goodson, and why would it be controversial for Public Protector Advocate Mkhwebane to associate with it?
That's the point. This is an opinion. She expressed an opinion that, in her view, the policy proposals that are in the book are good proposals. And I have no qualms with that. Because I agree. I'm not a fan of the current policy stance being advanced by the Reserve Bank. I think that they're leading South Africa into a disaster of increased levels of unemployment and inequality. That's my stance. And the public protector have a right to have a view. But this is where I disagree with my comrade. The mandate of the public protector is to address complaints about maladministration, corruption, abuse of power, and so forth. That's a mandate to start with. And the Reserve Bank, in my view, is not involved in maladministration and corruption. If anything, the Reserve Bank can be accused correctly of advancing a policy choice that, in the view of some in society, including myself, will only lead to us not being able to address the crisis of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities. That's a policy debate that South Africa should have, and that's why we welcome the comments she's making. No, but to then go to court and say to Parliament, look, you've made a wrong policy choice. To go to all of the political parties and say your ideological stance is the wrong one. On the Reserve Bank. Read the book. Yeah. She will be found wanting.
Mr. Manyu, before you come in, I want to ask of you, is it mere coincidence that she interviews Stephen Goodson, who holds these views about the role of the Reserve Bank, and a few months later she releases a report that seemingly advocates for the change of the mandate of the Reserve Bank?
I think that is irrelevant. What is relevant is what is in the content of the report. And I think South Africans must stop this thing of always trying to find all kinds of red herrings. The report is on the table. Nothing in the report mentions the book. Let's deal with the report. The report is not in a vacuum. What Uzweli is talking about here is a principle, and from a principle point of view, that's correct. But here we've got an issue. An issue we have is that the Reserve Bank did not do what it was meant to have done in terms of its own act. Nothing in the Reserve Bank authorizes the Reserve Bank to give lifeboats. Nothing in the Reserve Bank authorizes the Reserve Bank to give gifts, to give grants. It must make loans which are repayable at the right interest. You can't have a situation where Bancorp borrows from the Reserve Bank at 1% and they reinvest that same borrowing at 16%. So basically, it's a very elaborate scheme, this. So it's actually collusion between the Reserve Bank, National Treasury, and Bancorp. And all of them must come and respond to this.
All right, let's take a pause there. Stay tuned for more. After the break, the Politbureau is going to discuss this matter further.